All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I know this is an incredibly busy time of the year. Thank you so much online and in person for attending. I appreciate it. We're going to jump in with both feet. The department has a lot of stuff to talk about today, so I'm going to try to rattle off what I have to talk about as quickly as possible so we can get into their stuff. Okay, just a quick general agenda here. So we're booked until 4:30. I'm going to try to go 15 minutes or less with just some CE updates. And then I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, and they're going to talk about the ELWS course updates and training, and then we'll finish with a Q&A. Also, for the online people, I will be answering, so any questions you put in the Q&A, I'll put those into the microphone so everybody in the meeting can hear them, and we'll do it that way. So if you're online, you can ask questions too. Okay. People that are here, we have stipend forms in the back. Make sure you grab one of those. I'll collect them over by my computer before you guys leave. If you don't know your S number, that's okay. You can leave that blank. Don't put a social security number on that. We used to do that. We don't do that anymore. Let's make sure we get you paid for that. The people that are online, I will email you out the electronic copy of the stipend form so you guys can complete that in the next day or two. Okay, if I went to your classroom this year, I completed a college experience evaluation. And once I complete that, you get a little link through my CE that comes to your email address as well that says you need to go in and add some feedback and put it in your file and certify it. About half of the people do that as soon as I kind of leave their classroom, and then everybody else is kind of thinking about it. So if you have one of those pending, if I came to your class and you haven't certified it, please go in and check that out and put your comments in and stuff. My boss loves it when those things are all the way complete. Canvas review. All right. This was the new thing we did this last year, Canvas review, and there was a steep learning curve. I just want you guys to know we're continuing to do that. The learning curve thing lessened a little bit in the spring. It was steep in the fall. A couple of things to note about Canvas review. We didn't make it abundantly clear that you have to do two things with Canvas review. A lot of people did one or the other. So just make sure next year when we do Canvas review that you do it each semester for your classes, both fall and spring. Make sure that you add your content liaison, that would be me for English, to your course, and then also add the link to your course through my CE. And that's the thing that a lot of people didn't know they had to do both of. So if you just put the link in, I can't see it. If you put me in the course but don't add the link, you get lots of emails from Brandon. Okay, so make sure you're doing both those things. And if you're somebody that uses not your school district Canvas, but the Slick Canvas system, you have to complete another form for that. Don't worry. I'll send you out that form. We'll worry about that in the fall. Just wanted to make sure when I was talking to everybody that you guys understand that Canvas review is a couple of different things we have to do. All right, master syllabi. So I got a lot of emails about where do I find like the master syllabus for 1010 or for 2010. Those are all preloaded and ready to go for you guys. You can add to them, but they're already created for all 1010 and 2010 courses, but they're housed in the Slick Canvas system through Simple Syllabus. So if you have a syllabus you like, but you want to make sure you have the new one, always make sure that you go into your Slick Canvas course, and I have the icon up there on the left-hand navigation. There's the little link for Simple Syllabus, and this is in Slick Canvas. If you push that button, it'll give you all the automatically populated sections. You can add in extra stuff if you want, and you can download that, put it in your high school Canvas. You could also just make it public and put a link into your high school Canvas. Okay, so if you're looking for the master syllabi, that's where they are kept. Okay, I sent out a survey a month and a half, 2 months ago, asking what you guys wanted to talk about, if you had any questions for our training today. And so just to address some of the things that people brought with the survey. So first thing was AP status. So someone asked if AP seminar will be added to AP language as a prerequisite for English 2010. So can I complete AP seminar? Can my students complete AP seminar, jump right into 2010? The answer is no at this time, maybe in the future. There's like a grid that they have at the college that shows like what counts as prerequisites, and they're always reassessing the grid. But at this time, no, AP seminar does not count for 1010 prerequisite credit right now. Same question for AP literature. Does AP Lit count as prerequisite credit to get you into 2010? The answer is also no. Once again, it's just AP Lang. That's the only thing that could jump you straight into 2010. At this point, we'll see what changes come in the future. Okay, someone asked in the survey if everyone was having problems with student engagement, how can we increase student engagement? I don't really know how to answer that question. If I did, I'd be a much smarter man than I am. One thing I do know is people like money. And there's this big new update with the CE Transition Scholarship. And I wanted to at least put this out to you guys because I think it is a motivating factor for students and hopefully can help on some level with student engagement. So they have a thing called the SLIC CE Transition Scholarship. If a student completes 6 credits of any CE class or classes in high school and they get a 2.0 or better in those CE classes, and they go straight from high school to Salt Lake Community College, the community college will pay for full tuition for 2 semesters. So it's a free year's worth of tuition if they got C- or better in a couple of CE classes. That's about a $5,000 scholarship, considering that each semester is about $2,500. So it's a lot of money. The qualifications for that would be you have to fill out a form, the admission update form, and you have to fill out a FAFSA. You also can't go anywhere else before you go to Salt Lake Community College. So they're trying to get enrollment, right, to the community college. It will also hold. So if a student graduated from high school and went on a mission or served in the Army, as long as they come back and don't attend anywhere else, they can still fill out that form and they can still qualify for the scholarship. And the scholarship, like I said, is for a full year up to 18 credit hours. So they could even do a big schedule and they can make that money, okay? All right, those are all my updates. Are there any questions about the CE specific stuff? No? Okay, well then I'm going to turn the time over to the representatives from the ELWS department, and I'll be answering questions on the online chat, and then we'll have a section for questions at the end as well. Thank you guys, good to see you.
I'm pretty sure there's a joke about how many teachers does it take to get a PowerPoint working up here. We're still figuring that out.
So we'll just start by introducing ourselves. We're the program coordinators. I'm Joanne Giordano.
It's all right.
We like to make it exciting. Huzzah. Beautiful.
And I have been coordinating our integrated reading and writing program, but now I'm doing a lot of redesign work for first year writing. I do have a background in teaching concurrent enrollment students as a college teacher, teaching only high school students when I was in Wisconsin and courses for those students. And so the concurrent enrollment situation has really been on my mind as I'm thinking about how we redesign our writing program.
For sure. And I met some of y'all last year. I am Stephanie Meinhardt. I am one of the other coordinators. I have been at SLIC since before most of my students were born now, so I'm officially of that age. Our incoming AD, Darren Jensen, was not able to be here today, but we bring you his greetings and a promise that he's looking forward to engaging more on a department level with our CE faculty.
So we did the first part, welcome introductions. We're going to give you some writing program updates. One of the ones we don't have on there is our department is getting restructured to have more positions that are focused really on adjunct support, concurrent enrollment instructor support, instructional resources, and away from some of the things that we have to do like inputting schedules. And so we'll also have a writing program director position, which we haven't had in the past. So and we're going to now talk more about at the level of the curriculum, some changes. We're going to talk about some professional resources for concurrent enrollment instructors, specifically in writing courses. And as time permits, we're going to share some information that we shared with the other adjuncts, the adjuncts that we work with on our campuses, and we'll want to leave a lot of time for questions. So we have a few workshop activities, but we're going to streamline that just based on the available time that we have with you.
All right, so Canvas development shells, we're all aware that there have been some hinky issues with Canvas development shells. The English 1010 and some of the CE faculty have saved our bacon via fake news game. Anybody in here who found us the working link for that, thank you. I believe that was last fall when that happened. So we are aware that there are some existing issues with the development shells. We are in the process, and Joanne will talk more about this in just a moment, of creating a new development shell for the summer course, which the 8-week semester starts June 17th. We are also looking, how many of you here also adjunct for us in addition to doing the CE courses? A couple of folks? Okay. So if you are also adjuncting for us at the college in addition to the CE courses, we, as I mentioned, are working on the 8-week development shell. The administration, the provost, has actually requested we get some 12-week courses. So those are in the very distant planning stages, but possibly for next spring semester. So
you may or may not know about this, but the Utah higher education system has completely revised the way that it approaches general education. So in the previous academic year, a group of people from each of the areas of general education met and created system-wide learning outcomes. I was our representative to the USHE system written communication group. So that's English 1010, 2010, and 2100. And now possibly other courses springing off of this work. So the way that this works is if a student takes a general education course anywhere in the system, it must meet these learning outcomes that are system-wide. But as a result, every single institution has to accept the gen ed credit. And this is huge for students, including concurrent enrollment students, so that every place they go to in Utah that is public will have to take those credits. And when they come to a campus, and they've also streamlined those credits. So a bunch of institutions just kind of had whatever they wanted to, and some had a lot of credits. Everyone now has 27 credits, and then they can have an extra 3 that's something else. So there's no semesters of add-ons for students. So this is something to communicate with your students. So these credits are going to transfer across the system, but when they enter the Utah higher education system, they will, wherever they go, and we know that a lot of our students are picking up credits all over the place. So many of our students, especially online that we get, are not degree-seeking students at Salt Lake Community College. They're across the system, and they want to take a course with a professor, not a grad student, or they can't get in, or they're trying to get cheaper summer courses. So this is happening across the system. So as a result of this, we have to make some changes to our writing program. And the biggest changes are, there is a new curriculum. If you taught 1010 that you were teaching last semester, we were not involved in it. I do not understand why it was created, just let me put it out there, before these outcomes were in place. There was a group of people who decided to do it, and they did it outside the Shared Governance Committee. And for really strange reasons, they were given permission to do that, and it should have been after the outcomes were. But as we were looking at, there's multiple problems with that course, but also they are not aligned with the outcomes. And so we are triaging, and we're going to have a completely new course with a new curriculum. And we do apologize because we know that this was a really big shift for you, but we have to align it with what these outcomes are. And these are well aligned with national standards. So the primary standard nationwide is the Council of Writing Program Administrators outcomes. They're in the process of revising those outcomes. However, one of the people on that team is also on our team at our institution, Bernice Olivas. And we've aligned what we're doing with 1010 with the national standards for first year writing as well. So here's what they are, and they're across different categories. So context and purpose, these may look really familiar to you. So analyze rhetorical situations and adapt to the audience, purpose, modalities, and the circumstances surrounding a range of reading and writing tasks. So one problem we have with 1010 is it doesn't do that. It's not a range of reading tasks. It's very similar reading tasks and similar reading strategies, and doesn't reflect the kind of readings that people need to do. So the people working on this now, we have a substantial group of people, me included, who have a background in teaching college reading. And so I know a lot of you from your training are coming in with that reading perspective. That will be part of, it'll be a much more reading intensive, but reading strategies intensive curriculum to align with that. Genre awareness, so demonstrate critical and conceptual awareness of genre in reading and writing, including organization, content, presentation, formatting, and stylistic choices. This is one where, as a whole, our department has not done a very good job with the reading component of it. So the current curriculum has students reading texts about writing and not enough different genres. So you'll notice that change, and you'll notice some resources we developed to give you some choices. You can assign different readings. For those of you who are teaching more days of the week or need more of a curriculum that will be aligned with getting students towards this goal of just understanding how genre work, and also that genre conventions are different for different kinds of situations, formal, informal, in the workplace, in other college courses, to help. And we're really hoping that can prepare a student who's in concurrent enrollment to think about how they adapt their strategies and also how they adapt their reading and their writing across different fields of study that they're not yet in, that they're going to be preparing to do. So another focus is sources and evidence, so basically information literacy. So locate, evaluate, integrate credible and relevant sources to achieve various writing purposes. Students will have a writing assignment that directly is going to have them look at sources. So combining the skills of rhetorical analysis with also information literacy, where they'll have to establish the credibility of the sources that they're finding and indicate what are the elements that they're seeing in that source that establish whether it is an effective source, both for the purpose that they have as writers and also for the whether or not it counts as a credible source for college writing. And then the next one, and this is probably the biggest change, so this is moving away from standards for grammar and usage to really be more culturally responsive and inclusive and help students understand how language is really flexible and works in different ways across different contexts and cultures. So students will be focusing on recognizing and making intentional, critical, and contextually informed language choices across a range of rhetorical contexts and situations. So this curriculum will really foreground this idea of how people use language and reading and writing in different situations, and students will approach that from the perspective of reading, research, and writing to get at that, and also have a lot of critical reflection on what their own choices are as writers. And then the last one is pretty familiar, so recursive writing processes, so developing flexible, iterative, reflective processes for invention, drafting, workshopping, and revision. That one is not going to change a whole lot, other than we'll have more reflection in this course. It will help students reflect on their own literacy practices. So these are the USHE system standards, and they will apply for both to 1010 and 2010. We're focusing now on 1010 because that is the course that is universally required, not only across USHE, but across the United States at most institutions. And then also 2010 and 2100 will build from there. So next year we'll be looking closely at those, and those courses will need some tweaks, but not as many as this, which will be the foundational course that students take.
And I just wanted to add in, Joanne, the piece on the last slide talking about language awareness. I was reading a student's final reflection. He actually talked about how he code switches in conversations between work and friends, but then also made a really interesting rhetorical move talking about code switching between classes, which I thought was fascinating. So it was nice to see that, and the new curriculum will bring that in even more. Again, in addition to alignment with the USHE guidelines that Joanne just went over, we have a big priority, and especially if you're also adjuncting for us at the college, of 1010 completion. Making sure that we are reaching out to creating especially smooth transitions from IRW and ESL to credit-bearing coursework. That is not something that has been done especially well, especially with the changes to guided self-placement. And so we need to do a better job of bringing that in. Accounting for acceleration, the reading coursework, we need to bring that back in. Opportunity gaps for some student communities, and acknowledging that all of y'all work with a different set of student communities in the high school classroom than we may have a student who is one-off coming to a SLIC campus and taking a course, or a student who is just enrolled at SLIC. But making sure that we are creating opportunities and we're aware of the student communities, especially our first gen and returning adult learners. My husband recently retired from the military. He's a student at SLIC, and he's like, the Army was easier because he just doesn't know how to go back into student mode after all of that. And again, one of the goals of our incoming AD, Darren Jensen, is that we want to do a better job as a department of addressing the needs and collaborating with concurrent enrollment instructors to meet the needs of your students that you are working with. Joanna also mentioned the transfer moving in, and this leads into also the issue of accreditation. If we are not in alignment with USHE goals, that causes problems for SLIC accreditation, which causes problems for our students and all of us for our jobs.
Yeah, and just one more thing I want to add. So as we're looking at this curriculum and thinking about high school students, we have to be aware of more than one audience of high school students.
Yes.
And the current, I'm not going to say too much about it, but the current 1010 course does not account for the fact that many high school students are only picking up a gen ed here or there, and they're going somewhere else. It's too much focused on Salt Lake Community College and not enough on students' broad experiences. But we're also thinking about the many high school students we have at the South City campus or in the early college, high school, the students that we get that come to our evening and afternoon classes from high schools who are not in your courses, and also the many, many concurrent enrollment students who take English classes online, and thinking about all the ways in which we need to be supporting students who have a different contextual background for what college is, but they're not fully immersed in college. So that's something that really we want to have it be a priority, and we want to consult with you as we're thinking about what are the specific things that we have to support concurrent enrollment students, but also the students who are entering into our courses while still in high school. So here's and there's a lot more if you are also adjuncting for us that we'll be introducing to you in the fall. This is not all of the pieces that we're trying to do. We're really trying to create a 1010 that gets as many students through as possible, because they cannot get a college degree if they don't get through that course. And at the CE end of things, getting as many students through this to lay a foundation for all the other college courses that they will take. So this semester, we revised the English 1010 learning outcomes, and we'll be developing a curriculum surrounding those outcomes to align them with the system, but also for students as they're transferring in the developmental education courses, so that there's a smooth transition for those students. In the summer, as Steph mentioned, we're going to pilot the 1010 in face-to-face sections, get feedback. So if you're teaching 1010 in the fall, you will come back and there will be a 16-week version of the curriculum, and we will also in the fall be getting your feedback on that curriculum. So you will have access to the new curriculum probably in mid to early June. PACE will have access to it so that you can preview and see how that looks and how different it is. As part of this, we're going to be working on instructor guides that will kind of continue to add to. So rather than just having, here's what's in Canvas, we'll have a curricular guide that explains, here's concepts that students might need to know, here's the skills that the assignments work on, here's the skills that at particular points in the semester with scaffolded learning that students need to be doing with reading, and here's some alternative readings you might be using that might help you get at those outcomes, and here's ideas for classroom activities, because we know that some of you need more resources because the time that you are in the classroom might be different from the students that are in a college campus, and they're also different from what a student might need who's in a hybrid or online course. So that was something that will be a foundation in the fall, but we'll be continuing to develop that so that there will be a document that helps support whatever that learning is. But what we're also going to be doing with the goal of moving towards spring 2026, and I don't know if it will be done before or during, we want to have an English 1010 shell that is for concurrent enrollment courses that will be the same curriculum that we're giving in the college campuses, but that might have difference in how we approach and explain things, more resources for you, and we would like to consult with you in what we put into that curriculum. Darren Jensen is looking at the possibility of getting some funding if people come and participate to compensate them. The funding is all over the place right now because higher ed in Utah is being restructured by the state legislature. So we don't know how that's going to work out, but we do want to make sure that we're not just imposing something on you without your feedback about what it is that you actually need to do the work that you're doing with your students. And then we will be working in the fall and then throughout the next academic year after that with English 2010. So 2010, we're really looking closely at the fall of just looking at the learning outcomes, seeing alignment, kind of making some changes. And so if you teach 2010, you can expect that the changes will be happening starting sometime in 2026, but what the goal is by the end of that academic year, we'll have that in place. It might be earlier, but it just really depends on how much revision we have to do once we get feedback from people on the new curriculum for English 1010. And that is our priority because the entire USHE system has told us that we need to really focus on getting students through this one course that they have to take where they can't complete college without this course.
There was a question in the back.
In the fall.
Yes.
But by fall, you won't have a concurrent enrollment development shell. Sometime in 2026, we'll give you that, which will be supplements and taking a look at like, maybe this is an assignment that has to be done differently for a concurrent enrollment student, or we have to have different scaffolding. And so that will come in the fall. We'll start to look at that, but it won't be really available sometime in 2026. And it just depends on how long it takes and how much we have to tweak this curriculum. But you will have this, you can preview what the assignments are in, and the sort of pilot curriculum will be available for you to look at in June for those of you preparing for fall classes.
So for the fall, this pilot program, it's not the development shell? we
No.
don't have assignments or anything for it, but it's going to be.
No.
Not specifically for CE.
Okay,
It will be the
there will
English
be, there will be
1010
a
development shell.
completely new development shell. But our goal is sometime in 2026 to have a shell that will be built on the other shell, but that will have some differences in it for concurrent enrollment students.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because you have different needs and different, more time in the classroom. So, but we're not going to do that until we have the curriculum, you can look at it, and then you can give us feedback on what is it that now you need in a shell that is for concurrent enrollment. So the reason we don't have a timeline for the concurrent enrollment shell is we need to just to see how this curriculum works.
We need the feedback
We do
first.
know that this curriculum will be better than the current one because it will be aligned with the outcomes that we have to have. So we know that that improvement, we already know that that will be improvement, but there's other obstacles. And we're also looking really closely at labor. So for reasons that are really complicated, the current version of 1010 is so labor intensive for people to grade, and also what people are assessing is something that you just don't need to assess a bazillion annotations, as opposed to looking at students' development as writers and how they're responding to readings. And so we really we're going to pay attention to that too. It's like, what is the load we're asking people to take on with grading, which is making sure that the grading is meaningful learning activities that are tied to the learning outcomes and points in the course which you can, when and how you get feedback. Moving into next year, we're also going to be looking at training on how to provide feedback in a way that can be efficient, that can support students' development. Some of the more labor-intensive grading and feedback practices are not necessarily supporting students' learning, as well as some kinds of classroom-based activities that you can do. So we're really going to be kind of looking at that as well. And across our curriculum is how, not only how do we improve experiences for students, but also how do we improve them for instructors.
I just realized at the midpoint of this discussion that thank you all for being here in the middle of Teacher Appreciation Week. I have nothing for you but appreciation, but we see the work, we acknowledge it, and we want, as a department, want to do a better job of engaging with all of you. There was another question in the back.
I'm just curious, could you possibly give us just a one sentence heads up, like, okay, 1010 right now is blah, blah, and blah, and now it's going to be focused on blah, blah, and blah.
Yeah, 1010 right now is a bunch of assignments that a very small group of people decided they wanted to do because that's what they like to do.
So literacy, infographic, and the annotated bibliography
There
type
will
thing.
be an emphasis on literacy and having students think about information literacy, AI literacies, how they engage with reading and writing at workplace versus personal literacies and home literacies and academic literacies, and how academic literacies are very different at the college level across different fields of study. And so they'll be engaging with that, but students will be starting, they'll have a lot of reflective work to reflect on their own literacy practices. They will be having an assignment that has them focus on audience and purpose. That will be something where students can choose an application. So it could be their college application, it could be a scholarship application, it could be a workplace application, it could be a job application, or it could be another context where they're really thinking about a real audience and purpose, but also reflecting on how did I figure out what I was supposed to do for that. So that will be an early assignment that we have students do. We're going to have students do a literacy project where they're looking at how literacy is used in their community and do some primary research through like getting them to understand differences between sources that are not in print that I can get through interviewing somebody or investigating versus what I find in a text. We're going to have them also be thinking about an issue that's related to reading, writing, and literacy in a community that they belong to. And it could just be text messaging language, but it can also be how literacy is used in my workplace, or how people in my cultural background, what are the differences between that and the way literacy is used in my community. And that will be research intensive, where students will be doing an analysis of sources that they find and writing about it and documenting, how did I know that this was or wasn't a credible source? What are the features of that text? So it's taking rhetorical analysis, but rather than doing, ethos, logos, pathos, it's what am I seeing when I encounter information on the internet, or I encounter information for sources? So we're getting at that learning outcome for information literacy, which has really been really important right now. So all the students sucking things up. The one thing I do want to say about AI literacies, though, we'll be introducing students to the concept of AI literacies and the ethics behind that. It's not going to be heavily focused on AI, but we want to raise the awareness of students that there are decisions and ethical issues surrounding that. And then there are AI literacies that are coming from MLA about what students might be working on in first-year writing courses with AI literacy. So we'll be introducing that, but we're not going to be like teaching them how to use AI to write a paper. That's not what's going to happen, but they'll be encountering that and thinking about, the ethical choices behind that and how complicated it is. And very often students are using AI in ways that are not aligned with a rhetorical purpose. So those are some of what we're focusing on. One really, really big change though is in reading and reading strategies. So students will be doing a variety of texts in different genres and varying lengths and varying strategies, not annotate this, annotate this, annotate this, annotate this. So we'll be really looking at that. And we're going to try to put together a set of supplemental readings that you could use and switch out or add to your course too, that would help you teach some of these things. So scaled across writing assignments, looking really heavily also at writing about reading. So not just we do some reading and then we do some writing, but the really big issue for students at the college level is research is a reading activity. Writing is often required reading. And so those of you who are trained as high school teachers already know that. A lot of college teachers don't recognize that. So just embedding writing about reading throughout the course where students are making connections between the texts and their projects, the texts and their own experiences with literacy. So we've right now sketched out the assignments. We're kind of triaging them in the next month to try to get it going. And that's why we will have a separate version for fall, because we're going to pilot it for people teaching summer courses, and then in August, expand it or fix it or delete or change for what we're doing. And I wanted to say the assignments that we're using are not just things that we totally invented from nowhere. They're assignments that have been successfully used in other contexts. And we have to be really mindful at Salt Lake Community College because we have many immigrant students and students from diverse cultural backgrounds. And so we're really going to pay close attention to culturally responsive teaching and projects that allow them to engage with their own cultural backgrounds, which some of you might have in your courses and some of you might not, depending on where your high school is located.
Quick question. So we have a lot of questions online. A lot of them seem to be kind of in the same vein. So Carlene asked, could you please clarify that we in CE can use the pilot 1010 shell in the fall? So is that accurate?
We want you to use it and not use the other one. But we will not have the CE
Specific.
enhanced CE. It will be built on that shell, but we'll have an enhanced CE version sometime in 2026.
Okay, so just to make
We
sure.
would like you to use that version. You will be able to preview the pilot in the summer. So we'll make sure you have access to the pilot so you can, we know a lot of you need to do stuff in the summer because you're teaching too many students and too many hours a day in the fall. So you can preview it, but we will tweak it and enhance it for the 16 weeks. But we don't anticipate to have major changes, but we do want to make sure that we get feedback on things that are not working, that we do fix them for fall.
Okay, so preview of the course in June. The pilot shell that we use will come out in August, and then executing this new course starting with fall of this current year, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can expect that the fall version will be the same assignments. What might be different is enhanced options or sort of tweaking of certain learning activities, but it will be, the curriculum will be the foundation that you'll be using in the fall.
Exactly. And obviously the length of time. Other questions, Pace?
No, I'll process them just a little bit more because it was kind of all the same thing, and then I'll bring more if more come in. So you guys can keep going.
Roger. Okay, so this is something that we spoke about with the adjunct training we did at the college a couple of weeks ago. And again, acknowledging that because all of y'all are working in a different environment and you have vastly more students and more turnaround, and you have all the other responsibilities like chaperoning prom and parent-teacher conferences, I think that's what they still call them, I'm very old. But this was, timely grading and feedback was one of the impetuses behind wanting to make some of the changes because, as Joanne said earlier, the current version of 1010 is very labor intensive. There's a lot you're supposed to grade. If you're adjuncting for us at the college, the dean's office wanted everything graded before the next assignment came in. That's nigh unto impossible. I mean, I was two-fisting swig and finished out my emergency chocolate drawer, still couldn't get it done. So, but again, having the goal of maintaining current grades, and I'm sure districts and schools have specific guidance on this as well, But the feedback we give that allows students to progress in a course, and as Joanne mentioned, some of the feedback, the grading on some of the assignments isn't necessarily the most helpful that we're asking to do. So again, providing feedback on that and doing our best to assess student learning and inform instruction across the course. Again, we have as one of our goals, grading activities to be reduced in the upcoming pilot shell that we've got coming out.
And making them more meaningful.
Yes, absolutely. So
So I wanted to spend a few minutes sharing some resources with you. So I'm on the executive committee of the National Council of Teachers of English because I'm the Two-Year College English Association chair. And I helped organize with the college section a workshop last year in Boston at the convention that brought together high school teachers and college people around issues of concurrent enrollment and then the dual credit high school students who are enrolling in college. And I wanted just to share a few things with you from that came out of that conversation and let you know too that I'm organizing another meeting. I've invited Pace to join for fall where we're bringing together people to really talk about at the level of the discipline. So we're looking at English broadly across the country. So far, all the standards that keep popping out are just sort of, how do we make sure that those high school teachers are qualified? And not, how do we support high school teachers? How do we support the college teachers who have high school students in their classrooms or who are going into a high school classroom? So we're really going to be looking at that. And at some point in this year, I might ask you for your feedback. You can give it to Pace about what are some things that we need to have and we've been talking about what we're going to do in the department. We're talking about the level of the profession, what do we need to have. So I can send this link to Pace, but here's like a link to a handout that gives you some of the resources that we shared at that workshop. So standards from the National Alliance for Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships, and then some joint statements from disciplinary organizations. We're going to be revising and looking at that more intensively. But you can access those and kind of see what those are. And those are national standards. And you'll just note a lot of them really are about credentialing, and we're trying to move towards what are the resources people actually need to have in this space, given that so many high school students are enrolling all over the place in different ways in high school courses. And so many people are teaching them, and so many concurrent enrollment instructors, or even just other high school instructors, AP instructors in particular, are coming and teaching for us in college. So how do we blur those lines between year 12 and year 13 and 14, and make sure that as a discipline we're looking at in a much more cohesive way? So I want to just review some standards, and we want to talk a little bit about like where we have fallen short in Solid Community College. So the courses have to have the same quality and rigor, has to be the same syllabus, you're using the same curriculum, students have to be held to the same standards, and students should meet credentialing requirements and receive training and ongoing professional development. I think that our department has not done a very good job of that piece, of helping people with professional resources, and not only you, but people who are teaching for us part-time or coming out of literature MA programs, or coming back to the workforce and teaching classes for us. We're not really doing a good job with that, and that's one of the things that we really want to focus on. So, and the one thing that is important to note is one of the requirements is that if it's a concurrent enrollment program, there is greater accountability than when you have a high school student go in and take, because we're open access, and go take a course from us without going through the high school. So it should be a program, it should be cohesive, there should be support built into it. So that's sort of the frame of reference that we want to have as we're thinking about how we move forward over the next 3 to 5 years as a department. This is from the College Conference on Composition and Communication, Teacher Preparation Standards, and this is the requirements that they give to sponsoring organizations, the college in particular, but a post-secondary institution sponsoring a dual credit or concurrent enrollment program bears the responsibility of initial training, ongoing professional development for instructors who are hired to teach college writing instruction to secondary students. And some of the ways that this happens would be training workshops or seminars, ongoing professional development, ideally with pay, pedagogical materials, support mechanisms, and regular assessment of student work, like including you and your perspectives and what we do, and as we're thinking about assessment. So we're going to try, to the best of our abilities, as we move forward with our new associate dean, to be thinking about the support that you need, because we're not fully aligned with national standards in the way that we should be, because you just you have a great facilitator in Pace, but you don't necessarily have the training that is allowing you to have access to the same resources that our on-campus faculty have. So we just want to make you aware of that reality. And I just want to share one thing with you, and you can get these slides after, but just to show you that this is the statement. This came out from the college section, the Tier College English Association, and the College Conference on Composition and Communication, and the Council of Writing Program Administrators. So many national organizations came together, and they put out this statement about what the curriculum should be. This is really in line with those USHE system standards. And I want to just point out, our current 1010 curriculum in the revision made it less aligned with this than the previous version of the course. And we hope that the next version of the course will be more aligned. So the curriculum of a first-year composition is writing. And I would say that this also applies to sophomore writing, but this is really focused on first-year writing. And thus the content should include assignments and activities for students to learn about writing, including rhetorical concepts and practices central for success as writers and composers across digital and print formats. These include rhetorical knowledge, critical thinking, reading. That's the biggest issue that we do not have in our current curriculum. Composing practices, process, strategies to develop writing projects, knowledge of genre conventions, and reflection. To learn these concepts and practices, students should create projects that respond to a variety of rhetorical situations across multiple genres so that they become versatile writers capable of responding to different writing situations expected in college. Writing assignments should also include attention to the processes of writing, including drafting, peer reviewing, revising, editing, and reflecting. So we are going to keep this in mind, and it is aligned with those USHE system standards, and it's aligned with the new national standards that will be coming out within the next year or so from the Council of Writing Program Administrators. We're going to really try to align what we're doing with the national perspective of what these courses should be, and also thinking about the support that you might need.
So
I think is there some
gonna say
questions
before-
online?
It's like 2001 again, and I'm on Messenger, and I'm hitting all these questions. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to synthesize a couple of these questions together. Someone asked, is it possible for them to wait until the new curriculum is totally complete before instituting it? For example, like the current version that is being changed, teach that in the fall in 1010 until the new 1010 is totally complete, so they would have more ramp-up time on it?
No, I would recommend not doing that. So the version that will be available for you to preview in the summer will be similar to in the fall, and the fall will just be tweaking. And then we will be using that to build an enhanced version for concurrent enrollment. So there's nothing to stop somebody from using the old version, but the old version is not effectively aligned with USHE standards, with national standards, or with the needs of concurrent enrollment students. So our department's not going to stop somebody from using the version that they're doing this year, but we would like to encourage people to switch to the new version, and we think that it will be a better experience for you.
Okay. I had a question from Michelle Ritter, and she said, can we send suggested lesson ideas? She has some things that will fit within the new course. Are you guys looking to get information from CE teachers to be put into the CE course shell in the future?
Yes, please. So we will be having, because we have a lot of adjunct instructors who just hop in and they're also teaching for the U and other places, we will have embedded assignments, but we're also creating a curriculum guide that will have lots of ideas. And so if you have those ideas, you can send them to us now. And then that's the other piece that we'll be looking for when we look at the concurrent enrollment shell. And there may not be a lot of changes to it. We're thinking more in terms of enhancement versus difference, if that makes sense. So added resources versus having something completely different than the curriculum we're launching in the fall, just having more for you and giving you more options and things to use. And so if you do have ideas, even now, we would use them and welcome them.
And Pace, I don't know if you want to be the filter and have folks send it to you and you send it to us, or we do have an email for the ELWS coordinators, which we would be happy to share.
I don't think I need to gatekeep, so I will send them out the ELWS contact information. They can send stuff straight to you guys.
Roger that.
All right.
And there was a question up here in the front.
Well, maybe it's not so much a question, I'm just so confused, like, what, I like these changes, like what you're saying, I think it's very positive, but I'm wondering what happened, because we just changed everything.
Exactly.
Adapted everything, and now also we're being told, you gotta change everything.
Okay, without getting into the politics of it.
And throwing people under buses.
Okay, so. Oh, and I was trying to get graduate student apprentices through it, and it was not doable. Yeah, okay, so a couple of things happened. The reason it was changed before the learning outcomes were that there were complaints somewhere that 1010 and 2010 were too similar. What they should have just done was make some tweaks to 2010 or did better training for instructors. And so that's not what they did, but it was at the same time, and we were saying, let's wait for the UC system guidelines. People in leadership made a decision, they pulled a small group together. They did not pull I'm gonna just put it this way, we have people in our department who are nationally recognized experts on first-year writing, who widely publish on it. None of them were involved in this process, and the people who are involved do not have a background in course design and did not look at the entire program from developmental reading and writing and ESL through sophomore courses and how you have to do backwards design across a program, and also looking at standards versus what people want to do. So it should have never happened. We were not involved in that process, and we actually at the time tried to push back on it happening. The version now is going through shared governance, and meaning anybody who wants to work on it can give feedback. So it's which is when when we come to the point where we think about what extra or supplemental or different do we need for concurrent enrollment, we're not going to impose that on you. We're going to get your feedback on that and get your ideas for what that might need to be, because that's how effective instruction happens. So we're very sorry that this happened. We didn't want it to happen. I tried to stop it. I was not successful in stopping it. We should put it that way. So now we're charged with fixing it.
Question. Please. Oh, we've got a mic runner.
All right, so I gotta separate the three versions. So the version from before this current year had more rigor, I would say, than the version we have now.
It did, but it was, I'm just put this, it was too Englishy
Okay,
and not good enough for diverse students. So
Right.
there wasn't enough there to have students think about the different contexts in which they have to read and write in their lives and across different disciplines in
Right.
college.
Okay, so-
So it should have been changed, and it was not.
no, my question is
Yes,
that,
yes. And then there was the bad version.
right, so, okay, I'm gonna use your term, the bad version. So what we did, I'm at Jordan High, me and Elena Stone were teaching it, and so what we did is we kind of kept in some of the stuff that wasn't required, but we just knew the kids.
Which is
like-
what you probably should have done if you had enough time to do
So
that.
for example, like the rhetorical analysis paper, we didn't get rid of that. We kept that in and just like were able to squeeze it in because we knew the kids needed to know how to write a rhetorical analysis paper. So as you're making this new version, this good version, how much of the stuff from 2 classes ago are you going to pull in? Is there, if anything? 'Cause we have that stuff already, or a lot of that stuff.
Yes, so you will be able to use some of that. This is a redesign that's based on USHE standards, and particularly the fact that reading was very neglected in the program. And so when we think about that, and we're also trying to think about, I mean, one thing to understand is our courses serve the community. So we are serving the brightest range of students in Utah at Salt Lake Community College, including students often in rural communities who are accessing our online courses. So we have to be mindful of that in this curriculum that we do. If you have practices and activities that really worked well for you, I would encourage you to continue using them. The one baseline thing that makes concurrent enrollment is making sure that you have a syllabus that's college and that your major assessments of student learning are the college assessments. All the other things that you do and how you get there, you can do that. And I want to say, in this current version, we're not going to have standalone rhetorical analysis. We're going to have activities that are rhetorical analysis, and that what the students do will be an analysis plus evaluation of sources that they find because of the increased emphasis on information literacy, and also the fact that a lot of college students are getting sucked into fake news and believing it's true. So that's why we're kind of changing rhetorical analysis to be rhetorical analysis with evaluation of how is this credible or is it not, and what are the features of a text that help me understand that, versus here's how the author is persuading people.
Okay,
If that makes sense.
So the new one will be kind of like, implementation-wise, kind of like the bad one was in terms of like, these are the projects you need to do, fill in the spaces between in a way that fits your school community.
What we will have, what we're going to have is a development shell for face-to-face courses, one for hybrid and one for online, because we have to do the different modalities. We're trying to align them across modalities as closely as we can to the core assignments and the learning objectives. But we will have activities that are in there for the people who need them, But you, in your context, you can add in what you want. And we're hoping to have a curriculum guide that will give options for people. So that what's in the shell will be the activities that we want every student to do, plus some pages that are sort of, here's what is happening this week, but you can and should edit those for your high school context. So we're hoping that it will become flexible to you. And the one thing we do want people to try in the fall is the new assignments, because they're aligned with the USHE outcomes and the national standards. And they're much more aligned with this than the current version of the course.
And the feedback on those new assignments is going to be hugely helpful as we're preparing the CE-focused development shell. So,
And not everything about the course was negative. We did get positive feedback on the emphasis on students thinking about their own literacy practices. And that's going to be retained because it's part of the reflective piece of what we need to do for the USHE outcomes. So we should just show them we should show them what the workshop is and then go to questions.
for sure. Okay, I know how to drive a computer. I speak Mac, so when it's anything other, I'm like, oh dear. Okay, so we aren't going, for time's sake, we want to make sure that there's opportunity for conversation and for questions. I would love to. You are so welcome. I was trying to use my teacher military wife voice, but that might scare people. So for time's sake, we are not going to go through every element here, but we wanted to share with all of y'all some of the same materials that we shared with the adjunct instructors. One of the workshop conversation pieces we did was thinking about critically reflective teaching and how that comes into how we assess student work. So Joanne, this one was you.
Yeah, so we knew we weren't going to get to this, but we wanted just to introduce you to this concept. And you can see the activities that we shared with adjunct instructors. They had a longer time. They weren't covering as much information too. So critically reflective teaching, this comes from Stephen Brookfield, and this is across grade levels and everything, is just the sustained practice of intentionally identifying and checking the accuracy and validity of our teaching assumptions. And we do this in many ways. We do this through assessments of student learning. We do this from colleague feedback. We do this from engaging in the profession. But this is the practice that we are trying to get people to think about, and we will be having resources to help people think about that. We also want to make sure that your experiences are flexible enough, because you're not all at the same high school, and you have different populations depending on the high schools that you're at. And you need this to be able to think about, what is it that I have to do to meet the needs of my specific students, and especially as those students change over time. So we're not going to get into this because we do want to leave time for other questions that you have, but you'll have access to this through PACE, and you can just go through it, and it has just some activities and things that you can think about. That's what is in here, so.
Okay. So the questions here came to us from PACE, and those came from all of y'all from the survey. Joanne spoke a little bit to the idea of AI, how we are not going to be teaching students how to use AI, but how to question the ethics of it and how to responsibly engage with it, should that be an opportunity. And I'm not sure at the district level if are there district policies regarding AI use? Okay. I know like K through 6 teachers and college teachers, and so I'm not quite sure what policies are for the junior high and high school. Part of the development shell, which will be focused on CE instruction, is going to be an opportunity. Wow, I can speak today. I've been grading all day. An opportunity for assignment sharing and a clearinghouse of resources. Again, as folks asked, and I think that was one of the questions from online that PACE shared, if you have activities, if you have readings that are working, please send those to us. PACE will give you the coordinator's email address, and we would love to look at those and make sure that we're incorporating those into what we're doing.
Just the one thing that we do want to make sure, though, with readings, they need to be open access, available online, or a student could get them through the library database. So not something that you've copied off of somewhere, something that the format where the student accesses them would be accessible for students with screen readers. And then also, we're not dealing with copyright restrictions. So we're not embedding them in the course. We're sending students out to where they're available. But it can be things that are in library databases.
Absolutely. Did you want to speak to the 2010 limitations? Or that's one of your questions, I believe.
So here's the thing with 2010. Because we just really have to triage 1010. We're not going to be dealing with 2010 until fall, but we're going to take a close look at aligning with the learning outcomes. And we did get some feedback about rigor of assignments, about issues with that particular course. We also got people upset at the use of AI in that course. And so we do have feedback from people. For those of you who filled out the survey, we're going to be taking a close look at that. And I don't know any more about what the 2010 limitations are. I do know that thinking about sophomore courses, I think one change that might be forthcoming, because it's increasingly happening nationally, is to have students at the sophomore level thinking much more about disciplinary literacy, the ways in which different fields of study require different ways of knowing, thinking, and doing, and have students be doing more projects that are aligned with their own career goals or their own college field goals, or just exploring a field of study and thinking about how that's different. So I'm just anticipating, because this is going to go through shared governance, but I'm anticipating that that might be a change that we see in 2010. I do want to tell you, there's a super scary thing coming from the legislature related to writing programs that will affect 1010 and 2010 possibly. So the legislature passed a law that Utah State has to put the classics into their writing courses. So the humanities course has to be the classics, 1010 and 2010 has to be use of the classics. I am on the state written communication area board, and we're trying to write a response to that. We think that our institution has the best case for not doing it because we're trying to serve a broad range of students, but that could be an issue that we have to have revision to. And so we're trying to respond with students need much more flexibility as readers, and they need to focus time on writing, that writing courses are not humanities courses. They have humanities course elements sometimes, but they need to be preparing students for other kinds of literacy experiences across college and other areas of their literate lives. So I just want to let you know that that could have an impact on what we do with 2010. Right now it's limited to Utah State, it's a pilot. People across the state are looking closely at that. There's a reading list of suggested things, including Israelite history. Yes, but I wanted to say there were faculty who agreed with and colluded on this, but they didn't consult anybody from the writing program. And so to take two courses that are supposed to be about writing, from our perspective, I mean, you can do it, it's been done, but it doesn't necessarily meet the broad range of needs of students across different cultures and language backgrounds and literacy experiences to have that be their initial experience with reading in college. We will manage it and we can embed it in the same assignments that we're doing, but it might have a greater impact on 2010 than 1010. So I just want to let you know, that's just, we expect to have lots more fun things be coming to us in the future.
Yeah, thank you. My second question was, I get the shift to informational literacy because everybody comes from different discourses, but what about academic literacy? Like, is there still a focus, a balance with academic literacy so that they can survive a college paper?
It's going to be really purposely having students think about differences between academic literacy and other ways in which they use literacy. And especially, which I think has been kind of missing, we have this, interestingly enough, in our non-degree program. Students really focus on this, but having students think about how that academic literacy changes for different courses in different fields of study in significant ways sometimes. And so students need to develop rhetorical flexibility for that. So that's one of the issues we'll address. And I'm anticipating, I can't guarantee it, but that will also be something that we have to take a look at in 2010. More flexibility across academic literacies to help students think about it. And we do want to really recognize the fact that a concurrent enrollment student, this might be their only college class, and they may have difficulty thinking about that. So that's one of the areas in which we might think about preparation for adapting to different kinds of courses, because they're not actually in those other courses. Some of them are, but some of them are not.
Question?
I just wanted to say something kind of refreshing, and that is, this year, I just rebelled against the traditional argumentative paper. And in 2010, I just banned the United States. And we decided, you must write about something about a global issue. And I was expecting the kids to just automatically go, oh, I'm gonna write about France, it's my favorite country. Or I'm gonna talk about the Russia-Ukrainian war. But they didn't. I got the weirdest topics. I got things like, gender inequality in South Korea. I got things about the Maldives sinking into the bottom of the ocean. I got things about deforestation in Cambodia, of all things. It was the most refreshing, gang warfare in Chile, obscure, but the Slick Databases has that stuff. And it was delightful and refreshing, and I didn't have to read about marijuana. I just thought I'd toss that out there, that was, for me, a brilliant choice. Yay. Just as a break from
I did
America.
that, and I did something very similar, and it was highly successful, except for the student whose thesis statement was war is bad. And the whole paper was on how war is bad. And that one that one required a lot of conferencing to fix. One of the things, ways to increase the rigor of the institutional literacy assignment is to not have the institutional literacy assignment. That unit was, I looked at it, we didn't have enough opportunity to give feedback, but I looked at it before the course launched and I thought, this is horrible. We have so many high school students. Why are we doing this? Including, we also have a lot of students from other universities in our institution. So I'm not sure where that came from. There was an outcome for institutional literacy that is gone. It's not there anymore because students need to have flexibility to think about different rhetorical situations.
Yeah,
So,
and I didn't particularly like the way that it tried to teach rhetoric through institutional literacy. It was almost confusing to me, and I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of what rhetoric is and all of its different elements, and so thank you for getting rid of that.
a purely informational site that goes through marketing that is there to help students access information is not, I'm just saying this here because the people who did this are gone, but it's not how you even do rhetorical analysis. It's not something that needs to be analyzed rhetorically because it's straightforward information that's been vetted by so many people in terms of, you can't, I have done rhetorical analysis with the Salt Lake Community College website with my students just as an activity where they're kind of looking at which part is for new students and which part is actually for me. Yes. No, and I think the thinking behind it was we need to support students' transitions to college, but I don't think people were thinking about, as an institution that serves a community, we're thinking about their transitions to lots of institutions. And even some of our students on our campuses are only going to be there for that one semester, and then they transfer because of what their majors are. They need to transfer earlier. Yes, that's just not going to be there anymore.
No, for sure. And some of us did a mid-semester revision and gave students two options, and they could either do the institutional literacy or the scholarship application. And that application is what's morphing into the new curriculum, be it a job application, application to college, et cetera. There was another question.
I was just going to say, I did manage to tweak it and throw in a little tiny look at resumes with visual literacy
Lovely.
and apply that to the infographic kind of thing. But then I tweaked the assignment and made them compare and contrast two universities based on what they were interested in, like compare two programs. But it served, the point really became looking forward to college readiness, which, had some efficacy, but in terms of this is a writing course.
Sure.
Sure.
What we're hoping that the new assignment does, that it really is about adapting to audience on purpose, will do exactly that, and we'll be incorporating reflection on how am I figuring out what I'm supposed to do with this resume, with this cover letter, with this application, whatever it is, and how I'm making choices about how I'm presenting myself to where that is for a particular audience and purpose. So I think a lot of what you're describing is kind of where we want to take that assignment, but we're not, we didn't. No, and we will have students engage with websites, but they'll be evaluating their credibility and looking for what is the evidence you see there that helps establish the credibility or lack of credibility of that website. So that's kind of the direction that we're hoping to take it. Other questions online?
At this time, we don't have any pending questions that I know of. If anyone online would like to ask another one, we can, or if you feel that I didn't adequately answer it and would like me to address it to the presenters, I can do that as well. I've been firing off messages over here with all the different questions as trying to relate to that, but I don't know if I hit them all. So yes, just giving it a minute.
Question in the back.
Okay, so this is just a wish, like this is what I would like to see. But if we're dealing with rhetorical choices across contexts and discourses and stuff like that, I mean, we're really looking at how people design experiences. And so I really feel like there has to be that, like that visual literacy or that, or adding things that we're creating a certain experience. So I didn't know if that could be part of this conversation and become part of one of the courses.
I'm very much hoping it does. So I teach visual literacy. I teach that in my 1010 course and my 2010 course, and I'm hoping that becomes part of the conversation because it is an important part of analyzing websites. What I don't know is when we outline it, how much will fit in a way that's reasonable, but it's certainly something that we would hope that those of you who want to do that will find spaces for that, and we'll be thinking in the curriculum plan about ways to incorporate that. I mean, I have students directly write about the visual components that they're seeing on a website that they're evaluating for credibility in my section of my course. So I don't know what the end result's going to be because we're working for the next 3 weeks about what this assignment will actually look like. So.
Any other questions? Is everybody tapped out? Uh-huh. I know, I ask people how they are, and they're just like, yes. That's the appropriate response. The fact that we're all here and we're not in pajamas is a big mark in the win column, so go us. Pace, we'll shoot it back to you.
I want to host one of these meetings that isn't as exciting as they all seem to be. Okay, as we talked about last year when we were starting another new curriculum, I said it's all about collaboration. It's not about precision or having everything done or complete. It's about working together to accomplish the course objectives. Keep that in mind again as we re-embark on a similar journey. I'm not coming to your room to talk to you, to bust you or anything like that. We're there to have a conversation and make sure that the objectives are being hit. I think I'm a reasonable person in that way. I've had a lot of really great conversations this last year with teachers who are doing a great job, an excellent job, and presenting the course to the best of their ability, tailored to their unique student populations. So we're going to come at it again from that same perspective. I appreciate everybody in here and their flexibility and willingness to do this stuff, and also to teach CE, which is a whole bunch of extra work in many cases for not a whole bunch of extra money or any extra money. And so I appreciate everybody in here doing that. Okay, to my in-room attendees, please make sure you filled out a stipend form. If you want to leave it on the table over by where I am. I've been taking notes and answering questions. I think I've got everybody in the room, but it helps me take attendance with your stipend forms. I will send out everything we talked about in this meeting, from the presentation stuff to the coordinator's email information. I'll get that out to everybody as quickly as possible. Everybody that's online, I will send you the online stipend form. Just send that back to me. And if you have any questions or follow-up things, please shoot them to me as well. I'm also going to hang out here for a while, so if anybody wants to talk to me one-on-one or anything like that, I am happy to answer any questions. And I look forward to working with you guys in the future, and thanks for coming today.